To have lost Rob Thomas there in Holyhead, not to worry, because Andy Middleton's with us, Managing Director of TYF, a climate change and sustainability consultancy in Pembrokeshire. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning.
What do you think of this? We'll get onto the money and the finances and everything else in a moment, but purely in terms of the science, what do you make of this scheme and the technology?
I think it's great to see new technologies being trialled in Wales. I mean, I'm sitting now looking at over Ramsey Sound in St David's and seeing the power of the tide that courses around our coastline. There's a huge potential power there that can be tested if the appropriate technology and the planning permissions, as you say, can be found.
Right, but they reckon they've got the technology and it's ready to go.
Certainly, I mean, looking at their site, I think they're doing commercial trials. They've got the technology itself has been proven. It's taking it to scale, as you know, it can be the challenge. But the important thing for me is that places like Wales and Anglesey are being seen as desirable homes for high-tech companies in breakthrough technologies to want to come to. And the impact on Anglesey or Pembrokeshire when bringing in well-paid jobs in new areas is really important, and I think is great to see for Wales because with the new legislation coming through Wales, particularly about the Environment Bill that was announced the other day, we really need to be pushing new thinking about ways of managing our natural resources so that they're really good for communities, like building the resilience of the economy, good for an environment by reducing carbon, and have sort of a positive impact on the economy. So it's a good example of that.
Let's deal with the figures here then, because this is interesting. £9.5 million put forward of European money, but by the Welsh government. So the Welsh government are backing this to the tune of £9.5 million, of £25 million in total. The CEO told us earlier, well, they haven't got the private investors yet, but once you've got the £9.5 million, that gets you on the way. They won't be able to touch this public money, will they, until they've got everything in place?
I would imagine that the terms of agreement from Welsh Government will mean that the majority of it can't be touched until the rest of the equity is in place. And by Welsh Government coming in and taking some of the risk by being there first to say we believe in the technology, certainly makes it much easier for the finance teams to raise the money. And I think the really important thing about this is that as Wales moves forward, there's a new kind of economics developing whereby the total cost of projects needs to be factored in. We're still dealing with the negative impacts of businesses that ran 200 years ago that you see in the mine waste of Wales or the CO2. The IMF 2 days ago came out with a report showing that the world's fossil fuel industries are being subsidized to the extent of $10 million a minute because we're not taking into account the negative impacts on air quality, on CO2 and so on. So I think the great thing is that when projects like this do get funded, you'll see that the total funding has no negative impacts around CO2 emissions and so on. So at a balanced package, the prices often look much better.
Well, talking of the price, I mean, as they told us earlier on, in order for this to be viable, they're going to need to sell their electricity to the grid, this strike price as we talk about it, at around £250 per megawatt hour, which is even more. It's about half as much again compared to the Swansea tidal lagoon, which itself was considered expensive at £168 a megawatt hour. Are they really going to get £250 a megawatt hour?
That's not a question for me to answer, but I think what we do need to look at is what the strike price at the end of the day in projects like this is about a risk investment and saying, do government believe that a project like this is worth the money in terms of the impact that it could create overall? And if the government do decide to get the right strike prices because they believe the technology over time has the power to give the payback to the UK rather than saying the electricity by itself is worth a particular price. So it's a different way, I guess, of subsidising the project in terms of grants from a UK government as opposed to the Welsh government.
Yeah.
So because the energy, they're talking about 8,000 homes being supplied by this project. The question is, if they do build 20 installations across the UK in the next 10 years and start to export worldwide, what does that mean in a bigger picture for the UK and the Welsh economy as well as the environment?
Thank you very much. Andy Middleton, who's the Managing Director of TYF, which is a climate change and sustainability consultancy in Pembrokeshire.